So Anita is a professor of the School of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science at Oregon State University. She received her Ph.D. in computer science from the University of California, Irvine, and was a postdoc at Carnegie Mellon. Her research aims to understand the cognitive processes of humans and build inclusive technology to help diverse users. She co-leads the GenderMag project and the SocioeconomicMag project. And her talk today is called Empowering Open Source, Effective Mentoring Strategies for an Inclusive Community. So please welcome Anita.
Thank you everyone for coming to the talk. I shortened my title. That title was quite the mouthful, but I wanted to give an idea of what the talk is going to be so that you would know what you're getting into. So thank you for the introduction. Let's get started. You're all folks in open source, right? And we know that open source is such an amazing community. Most of you are volunteers, like you're just taking time out of your daily job and building things. Should I be louder? Okay, building things, and you get the option of working, collaborating with a whole bunch of people from different parts of the world, right? And it can, and what you're doing is open source provides the opportunity to create, build, develop the technical skills, and oftentimes it can also help pave technical career pathways. And in true sense, open source is open. Anyone can join. It is on meritocracy. But if you're a newcomer, if you're just starting out, maybe you're not even got the CS background, it can be very challenging and scary. First of all, where do you begin? As we said, like projects, you are having such amazing open source projects, it is almost the backbone of the digital infrastructure we have. Linux has gone to Mars. So if you have such complex product and there's a newcomer, it's very challenging to know where to begin. What should be my first task be? And also if you are coming in directly, these are technical complex projects, including lots of different infrastructure and API. Does the newcomer feel like, do I have the enough experience? Do I have the technical skills? How do I know the first issue I will do, I can do it, or will I fall flat on my face? How do I find out if I have the right technical expertise? And this comes with the infrastructure hurdle, right? Remember the last project you downloaded and set up the infrastructure? It has so many APIs, right? How many times you have to deal with that? If you join a company, it takes at least 6 to 9 months to onboard. I have been a faculty member for almost 16 years now, and I did my sabbatical at Google. Oh my God, it took me almost 3.5 months to get just the infrastructure set up before I could even write my first pull request, right? And I had someone who helped me. If it's an open source setting and you're completely outside, how would you know how to set it up right? And there are so many infrastructure hurdles someone faces. And nobody likes making documentation, right? Oftentimes your documentation is outdated or it's ambiguous, and it's difficult to know what even the governance structure is. Add to it bureaucratic processes, How do you get your pull request done? How many reviewers do you need? Do you know who the owner of the project is to get their approval? And sometimes the community can be unsupportive, and that just adds a further layer of challenge to the challenges that the newcomer is already facing. Towards that, Linux did this very large-scale survey. It had a total of about 4,000 responses to understand what was the state of diversity, equity, and inclusion in open source. This was done in collaboration with other researchers and companies, and I was one of the researchers who had helped with the design of the survey. It was a really large-scale survey across different countries, translated into, I think, 11 languages. And one of the questions was, as we're talking about challenging environment, one question was, have you experienced any of the following behaviors in the context of open source? And I don't know if you can see my cursor here, where it goes from never to rarely to occasionally is orange and frequently is red. I don't need you to look at this tiny print, but the first question dealt with lack of response or rejection of a pull request without appropriate understanding of why it is. And as you can see, quite about 70% people had faced this. moving on to any kind of interpersonal conflict that occurred when getting a pull request accepted, followed by hostile or rude languages that someone might have experienced. And you can see, like, even though if it is orange is occasionally, that's about 20%-ish people have faced it. About stereotyping, people have stereotyped someone, and what's that effect? And then it gets a lot more concerning kind of experiences, like actual getting stalking, threats of violence, much, much less, but still like 5 to 7% of people out of a size of 2,300 people, we are facing that. Sexual harassment goes on, and to doxing. So you would see like about 20% of the community has faced some challenge, and about 5 to 7% are facing one of the more serious, egregious challenges. So to make this more engaging, I want to kind of find out, this data was done in 2021, right? I want to see from you, what kind of challenges do you think you are seeing in your community? So this is a poll everywhere. It has a QR code as well as that thing on top that tells you how to text in answers. I'm a poor academic, so I have the free license. What it does mean, like, there's only one response per person, so what I would really like is to have your responses be the challenges separated by commas, and as you're putting in, if things work out, it should start popping as a word cloud. Because I'm very interested to see, like, what kind of challenges your community is facing, and if it is different from what Linux Foundation had found. See, any responses yet? All right, we are getting lack of response, yes. Sorry, the QR code should have been a little bigger. You can write whatever you want. Oh, QR is not working? And you can write whatever you feel like writing too. I hope I don't fall off because this is not showing. Okay. So stereotyping, harassment. Oh, I've run out of credits. Okay, we have got 25 responses already. Awesome, thank you. Next time I come for the keynote, I'll pay for the paid version. So lack of response seems to be the biggest thing, right? And if you're a newcomer and you're coming, trying to make a first pull request, and it is just so difficult, and you have done a great job, you're excited, and nothing happens, right? This is going to be a challenge. What is happening is you are losing a lot of your potential contributors' workforce, right? Let's see how the next one does. So what I want you to also now next think about is, based on these challenges that you have seen in the community, to what extent would this cause a feeling of not being welcomed, or feeling that your welcomeness is missing from the community and someone wants to join it? Let's see. Okay, I probably have reached my limit again. Thank you for responding. So it seems like we have the significantly and extremely being part of it, right? So yes. And as academic researcher, it is theoretically shown, statistically shown that it does make a difference. So we took the Linux 2021 survey data, these 8 or 7 challenges, and from there we created a latent construct of what is someone feeling interpersonal challenges. Towards that, there was this question about feeling welcome that you just filled out that was also in the Linux survey, and we looked at the hypothesis. The connection was significant, and if you can see, the R square of feeling welcome is 0.3. So it's not 80% R square, but for any kind of social science study, anything more than 20% seems like it is important, right? So there are challenges. Those challenges make people feel not as welcome. And demographics adds another layer of complexity, right? So this is a DEI-focused talk. So I want to bring in the diversity, equity, inclusion aspect of it. What someone's identity is, gender identity or other kinds of identity. If there's anybody who has disability, Those are the two kinds of DEI we have been listening about, and it does make a difference. But every individual is, humans are messy. We are a construct of all our lived experiences. And some other cognitive styles, like if someone is risk averse or has lower computer self-efficacy, it becomes all that more challenging to contribute to something that is open, because anything someone is writing is open to public. Anybody can criticize, and it stays forever, right? It is part of your record. So it becomes very challenging for someone to take that step, write that pull request, and hope something comes out good, right? And what if English is not your first language? What if, writing all this communication, most open source projects are English-based, right? If that's not your first language, like how to write the comment well, how to discuss it appropriately becomes even more challenging. And something that a lot of study has been done in collaboration, coordination, software teams is the cultural differences. Some countries, like in Asia, are more hierarchical, where things are much more like managers give activities and tasks to juniors, and it's very hard for them to speak out against someone who's higher up. And now if someone comes from that kind of a culture where juniors are not supposed to push back, not supposed to speak back, speak out loud, it becomes harder for newcomers or mentees to push back against some ideas. Versus individualistic society like in Western development, where people are just out there, you can give your opinion, right? And the data shows that these DEI aspects does make a difference in how people feel welcomed. In the same survey, 30% reported that some aspect of their identity was a factor in their ability to reach the goals that they had. 22% disagreed that there was equal opportunity that existed for them, right? So meritocracy is, if you have the merit, you should be able to go for it. But oftentimes we call it, what open source has is pushiocracy. Who has the loudest voice gets their ideas pushed out. Those who are not out there, cannot speak out, sometimes get left behind, right? And if you are from an underrepresented group, if you are in the minority, it is often more difficult to speak out. And voila, more data, right? This is one of the questions about have you frequent or occasional experiences with written or spoken language that made you feel unwelcome? And this is by demographics. All the way on the bottom is the study average, 18%, and most of the largest scale of respondents were the majority class, PEN, white, from North America. So you can see 18% feel this to happen. But if you keep going up, it gets worse and worse. The top part is 54% of those who were non-binary, third gender or other felt that things were unwelcome because of what language was being used, right? Person with disability, 33%. Women, 34%, right? So demographics is playing a role. One of the research I was doing interviews about the challenges newcomers face. And this one person who was a woman who's become pretty well up now in Linux, and she was saying that when she started, it felt like OSS is like a hostile enemy territory that one must navigate without stepping on a landmine and starting a flame war, right? You have to be so careful of what you say, what you do, what the social norms are, sometimes the political culture of your project, as well as the technical things. And that's where mentoring is such an important solution, right? Mentoring can help. I'm focusing a lot on Linux because I have been participating with them for a while. So Linux Foundation has quite a few mentorship programs. And one of the research they wanted to do was how useful is the mentorship program? And this data is from there. They found that mentorship encourages greater equity and accessibility for underrepresented groups, so it is really important to the individual. But what is also very important is for project sustainability. This report found that 85% of mentees who were mentored by someone were willing to keep contributing. So for your project sustainability, it's really important that these individuals are mentored. Further going on project sustainability, it also showed that mentorship creates opportunity for healthy succession of leadership. So you're grooming your leaders and getting them ready to take on, because not all of you want to be maintainers for all the time. Going back to the research we were doing on structural modeling of the latent construct of interpersonal challenges and feeling welcome, the only two constructs that made a difference, that when someone is facing interpersonal challenges and how welcome they feel, was whether they have trust on the code of conduct, whether it is enforceable, whether it is being done well. And the second was having their opinions being valued by leadership. And this is where mentorship can play a big role. Like, even if you face a challenge, but you feel that your voice is being valued, someone is listening to you, it can make a difference. The other thing I'm not presenting here is from feeling welcome to disengaging. There was nothing that moderated that feeling. Once people feel the community is unwelcoming, they will disengage, and you will lose that person. So mentoring is awesome, but we all know mentoring is not easy. So let's try a poll again and see what challenges have you faced as a mentor in your OSS community. This is also a word cloud answer. Time available, disengagement with lack of time. Wrong mentee, I guess, yeah. Wrong goals, disconnection, overload. All right, I think things have hit my upper limit already. So yes, so time seems to be the biggest thing, and we know that time is one of the biggest concerns we have. So given the limited time we have, what are the other issues, right? So lack of researchers, lack of resources, responsibility, communication being a problem. I've been working on mentoring for the last 7-8 years, and through many different research projects, we have kind of found out the different kind of challenges that mentors have faced and challenges that newcomers and mentees are facing, as well as community-driven strategies that they have talked about. Addition to that, we have done a literature review of 39 academic papers that have talked about this, this aspect, and from there we have collated this set of 6 challenges that mentors face. I have not put time here because time is the one critical thing that everyone has a challenge with, but let's talk about some of the other things. And more specifically, for interest of time, because I've been told 45 minutes, I'm going to get some warnings. I'm going to talk about the three top challenges that came out and that I think is something more interesting to talk about that you might not have thought about, right? So the first is unacknowledged effort, right? This kind of goes along with the time and the responsibilities you have. So mentoring does take time, especially if you do a dedicated mentoring. It is emotional engagement, emotional challenge, as well as the time it takes. And again, if you're a volunteer and there's only so much time, what you do is, like, if you do mentoring, you are giving up something else. And if your mentoring efforts are not acknowledged, it really can hurt you, not only your time and how much burnout you're having, but also your career. Right? So this is one of the papers which was in Apache, and there was like, there is no recognition or kudos, no positive reinforcement. And someone else that I have not put in over here, but that also always stuck with me, was this person liked doing mentoring. It was something crucial to her, so she enjoyed it. But what happened was, as she was doing more and more mentoring, she was getting recognized as a mentor, like she was getting popular as a mentor, so more people were going to her. But what happened at the end was she lost her spot at the technical table, right? So because she was doing so much mentoring, she was not making technical contributions, and she said, like, no, the upshot was I still like doing it. I probably would have done it again, but I lost my technical voice, right? I was no longer invited into this decision making, which is really sad. And this person was a pretty high up technical person before she started taking on these mentees. So we do not want to lose these people, right? So that is a serious challenge because there's only so much you can do. Another thing is communication, right? Communication challenges abound in any kind of interactions we have, and mentor-mentee interactions are similar. So in some cultures, it's kind of difficult to get feedback. Like for anybody, it's difficult to get feedback. Going back to culture, if you are individualistic, if you're short on time, just your style, you might just be like, I'm giving you all the information so you can go fix yourself. But sometimes it might be hard to get those kind of reviews, right? So think back to your pull request review you got or some other review you got. That was like harsh, right? So communication mismatches, especially if you're not setting up the right expectation, can be something that causes disengagement from the mentee or things that just not work out well, right? I saw some disengagement and a wrong mentee at some point in your answers. And again, I'm not going to talk about language skills, but communication can be even worse. Communication challenges can be made worse if language is a barrier between the two of you. Finally, finding the right task for a newcomer, right? As a newcomer, everything is crazy. You don't know what to do, how to start. As a mentor, even someone you have stayed with, you're an experienced person, actually finding what is the right task to give a newcomer is hard. One, because sometimes it's difficult to find out what it is from the issue, right? And sometimes you might have to do the whole thing yourself to figure out what is needed, and you don't have the time for that. So how do we find what is the complexity level of the task that can be given to the mentee? It's not too big, it's not too small. Another challenge that we heard people talk about was it also depends on the project cadence, right? If it is sometimes at release time, you might not have any small projects to give. Depending on how big your sprints are, you might have very big tasks to give. So it's not just as a mentor, our time, it is also your project cadence, what your mentee is able to do. So this is a very complicated situation, and some tools exist, like finding complexity, but it is, as this person is saying, none of them could be applied to Linux. One of the things my research has done is try to use machine learning to not talk about complexity of the issue, but at least identify what APIs are being used so that the mentee or the newcomer or the mentor can figure out at least what skill sets are needed to finish this task or start with this task. So let's move on to a little bit more interesting thing, because you all know the challenges, you have faced it. So these are some of the strategies that we could identify from the literature based on all the different studies that has been done. So I'll go through over each of these. First is knowing your mentee, right? As simple as having some meetings to understand the mentee's interests, the background, setting up these expectations, right? I tell my students, it's my job as a faculty to make you successful, right? Your success makes my success, and I give you feedback so that you can reach your goals, right? So I might give you direct feedback, that's my style, but my goal is to make you successful. Just setting up that expectations can make it much help. Also making newcomer contributions identifiable. This was talked by multiple things, just tagging this is somebody who's a newcomer, so that as a mentor or as a expert, you can just be a little more patient with them. Right? So this can help with the task overload, communication challenges, as well as finding the task so that you know who your mentees are. Governance, documentation, keeping them up to date, concise, we all want to do that, but we never have the time, but that really helps. And at this point, with where GPT is and all these LLMs are, perhaps this is something that we can automate to an extent to keep documentation updated. Clear code of conduct. Oftentimes, when you start a GitHub project, it comes with this template code of conduct, but that's very clear that nobody has put any thought into that. And as we saw before, having a good, enforceable, good, trustworthy code of conduct makes a difference. So do pay attention to that. Promote psychological safety, right? Scary, public, be patient so that they can take the risk and make the changes. And multiple methods of communication is useful, so that it's not just text-based, English-based communication. Maybe you can have a video conference where you can gauge emotional responses or just verbal facial cues so that you understand better, or have shared documents, have async communication, right? So whichever way works for the mentee to be comfortable, so you can avoid some of these communication hurdles. This is for like projects and organizations. You want to get mentors to be proactively engagement with mentees. So you can have some meetings, some kind of luncheons like this, coffee meets. So there's some engagement to understand if your mentee is struggling, because they don't often speak up, and you don't want to find the problem much later. It's good to just talk with them, right? So you can have orientation sessions. Again, communication challenges, finding difficult tasks. Maybe the task is too difficult for the mentee at this point. Allowing mentees to choose their tasks, so it'll help you with some of your overload situation. Some of the things you could like have small repetitive tasks. Even works that have been done once, they can redo it so they understand what the things are needed. And you can tag issues based on the complexity or skills needed. Let's see how many we have more. Supporting mentees. This is kind of a list of things. I'm not going to talk about everything, but I want to focus on fostering the last two parts, which is fostering peer discussion groups. Like, you are a mentor, you're helping the mentees, but also an important part is peer support and peer groups. So you don't have to take all the responsibilities on your shoulders. You can have them peer engage and peer discuss. That actually makes a big difference. And it kind of helps with the 4 of the challenges. So what we have done is, again, I don't know if QR will work or not, but we have been collecting all these challenges first and now the strategies. And the next step that we are going to do is kind of get a survey to find out which of these strategies are effective for what kind of challenges. So if you can take the survey, it'll be really helpful to us. Then we can synthesize your results. We are doing this as many open source people we could. Then we can have a list of these effective strategies that can help mentors. I went back, sorry. Yes. So I'm going to start wrapping up now. So in conclusion, mentoring is essential, right? But time is a scarce resource. You can see that big hourglass, and that was the biggest concern that I saw come from the word cloud from this thing. So mentoring is essential. It helps not only individuals' growth, both mentees and mentors. It keeps projects sustainable and gets leadership. So what I want to talk about here is there are many different ways you can engage as a mentor, right? The basic one is the formal mentoring program, where like in Linux Foundation mentoring or Apache Foundation mentoring, where you're connected, a mentor-mentee, maybe multiple mentees. There is connecting to newcomers like Outreachy, which focuses on underrepresented groups to get them involved in open source, or the Google Summer of Code, right? So you can participate with that. There is also Code Day you can participate. This is meant for community colleges and those who are from a lower SES socioeconomic status background. They are not able to go to four-year regular undergrad, so they are trying to get them to tech by reaching out to them. So these are different ways you can participate as formal mentors. But if you don't have the time for that, right, or if you're already doing that, there are other ways you can do too. One is just being an ally. This is work I did at Google while I was sabbaticaling there. And one of the things we were looking at is what were the successful diverse teams, engineering teams. And one of the things that came out was the managers who had really successful diversity in their teams were allies and technical allies. And technical allies is like creating stretch opportunities for your mentees, right? So giving them a task, but that task can be made more challenging if needed, right? The other thing is, with being a technical ally, is giving them those opportunities, but also promoting psychological safety, because career skill development or career growth has trial and error. So if someone is given that opportunity and they do not succeed, let them have a second chance, right? So as a technical ally, you could do that. The other whole branch of mentoring is informal mentoring. One is like some of the conversations I have had with open source contributors is you got a formal mentor, but the most help, especially career growth, role models was by informal mentoring. Reach out to others, just talk to others. Another thing that we are talking about in our research is called implicit mentoring. That is mentoring that you can do in just your day-to-day activities, right? And code reviews is one of those vehicles, right? It can be a great opportunity to teach someone about not only the technical skills, but how to communicate, the social, cultural norms that your open source project has. And I don't have time to go through the research, but 95% agreed that implicit mentoring is a right way to teach, and it helps both mentors and mentees develop their career growth, their technical growth. So there are many different ways you can participate. Just moving forward, I know lots of people might already be thinking about it. What is the role of AI, right? Yes, there is a role of AI. They can be the first responder, right? As implicit mentoring I'm talking about, they can help write the first PR response. GPT can be used for creating bite-sized, task-oriented documentation. We are working on that to create, TikTok style, but really short, 2-3 minute long video documentation by looking at the README, contributing MD to kind of help newcomers get the help they need in the task. The last one, navigating social norms, a little more difficult for AI, but maybe it does. It can already check for emotions. Maybe it can understand communication problem areas and help the mentor-mentee get better interaction style, right? There are a lot of places that AI can help, but we should all be aware of that AI's dark side, right? Depending on what kind of data it is trained on, it can quickly become not so nice. So anytime you are thinking about using AI, as we are also doing, think about the different fairness parts, right? The data model fairness part, if it is fair to the different cognitive styles. Also think about the resources, the Earth's constraints that we have. Like each LLM query is like on trillions of parameters. It takes up a lot of resources. I'm looking for collaborators over here. So we are looking at implicit mentoring towards that. What are the patterns or anti-patterns in code reviewing for teaching purposes? We have one set done from Google that I'll be presenting at an academic conference next time. We found like over 12 patterns of good teaching practices that you can do through code reviewing. The final thought I want to leave out with is like it's not all about code also, right? This term we are called glue work. That is, mentoring is one type of glue work, but documentation, some internationalization, any of this really crappy maintenance work that needs to be done. And those are all glue work, and many of them are currently not acknowledged. Many of them don't even show up in the repositories. So I'm very interested in any kind of collaboration I might have to identify the different types of glue work that happens in your community. What are you doing to acknowledge it, and how much of that can be actually recorded somewhere that we can then collect? All right, thank you to all my collaborators. This is my team. They do all the real hard work here. These are my funders who have funded the research so far. That's my lab. And I am open for questions, and I want to just leave you with this slide while the Q&A is happening, which is the different ways of being mentors, the challenges and strategies. Another survey, because we're always trying to collect data. This is what we are doing, is to kind of look at the Linux data that happened 2021, how much of it is still happening, and some kind of figuring out how to then help with feeling welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a few. Hello, hello, hello. Hi. Not yet. Someone is walking very fast to give me some audio.
Which they can't hear.
Yes. But there are people online who cannot hear me, so I'm going to wait. Hello, hello, hello. I think that sounds pretty good. Awesome. All right, some questions from the people in the room and the people not in the room. You mentioned in the beginning about writing documentation and also how people don't read documentation. So this person is wondering, people do seem to watch videos. Have you seen the idea of like having a script of tasks to do to start contributing that are recorded as videos, and have you seen that if it worked somewhere?
So fantastic question and a great way to collaborate with me. So please email me because I'm looking to do just that work. So we have, I know of a couple people who actually are open source evangelists, and what they do is they record themselves doing tasks as videos. Those are longer videos, but how onboarding, how to make a first contribution. And those videos are really, really popular. This person has about 30,000 people who are following her. So especially for newcomers, and this person is from Brazil, so especially seeing someone who's from outside the country and being able to communicate, this is important. But these are larger videos, a single person making for a particular project. So one of the projects I'm working on is scraping the READMEs, contributing MDs, and trying to create task-focused, like how to make your first PR in this particular project, and creating TikTok-sized short videos, and task-focused. So yes, if you are looking for that, work with us. We got a little bit of an open AI token, so we are going to start using LLMs and see if we can make videos and stuff.
Nice. Next question. Many trades have formal apprenticeship programs that have existed for generations. It is expected that newcomers start as apprentices and also that more senior people take on apprentices. Is there anything open source software can learn from these trades?
Yes, old style apprentice would take they would start when they were like teenagers, right? It takes a long time. Grad students stay with us for at least 5-6 years, right? So it takes a long time to get that trained. So the problem with open source is time constraints and people turnover. So it is hard, but if you can create like mentorship programs like Linux has, or for open source Apache has, they are longer term. One of the things I have heard is these kind of formal mentorships are not working that well, and it's more informal mentoring that is what actually gets connection, because the problem is you might have a formal mentorship, but it might not connect with the right person, the way you talk and what your career goals are. Because the other thing is being role models or career progress is also important as a mentee. So what can we learn? I think there is interesting things, but the time and the dedication is the problem that is hard to translate.
Got it. One more. I love helping newbies. This is a question from someone who's watching online. But becoming a mentor can be political or poorly defined. How do I find an OSS project with the explicit goal of primarily being a mentor? I think it's a question for you and for everyone here. Maybe it's one more badge on GitHub for like
So, I mean, one of the things is like you can work with Outreachy or Code Day. So these are two organizations. Outreachy is especially meant to help underrepresented groups. So you have a set of tasks. So they actively look for mentors who will be doing that. And Code Day is another one which is helping students from community colleges. So they will help you find a good mentee and find that connection. So you have another organization that's helping you. But which exact projects, maybe you can talk to those people and find projects that work. Yeah.
Okay. How can senior technical folks, especially those from underrepresented or minoritized backgrounds, engage in mentorship without being perceived as less technical? An easy question.
If I had the answer to that, I would go on roadshows. It's hard. It's really hard. And one of the things I do want to make sure, like, because you're underrepresented, whatever be the diversity lens, right? It should not be that the onus is on them, because then you get complete, like I am on so many committees oftentimes as the, gendership there. And I also have a hard time saying no to things, so it becomes really difficult. So I think the problem, like if you do all that work, you will give up something and you don't want to burn out. So one of the things I want to do with this glue work part is how can we identify all this effort that goes in so that we can actually quantify it, and then that can take it to the managers and say, look, this much work is being done and you need to give some kind of incentive, some kind of recognition. So that's my major life goal right now, is to understand glue work and be able to quantify it and the impact of it, so we can go show them, look, this is important. It's just not a side job. It is a main job for project and community sustainability. So this needs to be given credit, extra time, like 20% time for mentoring or whatever the company can afford.
Yep.
So I think we need proof, empirical data.
Yep. Do you expect any differences in your findings if focusing specifically on scientific open source software like it is here?
I don't know. I'm willing to find out.
Also looking for collaborators.
Looking for collaborators. We can totally do a change because yes, most of my work has been focused on Linux and Open Apache, which is very different. I'm starting to get into scientific software with Sandia National Labs, but it's just not there yet. So
Okay.
happy to look into it. So shoot me an email.
Awesome. Someone says, something that I struggle with is how I can be an effective mentor and role model for people from different demographics. Do you have any suggestion on how I can be better at advocating for these people?
Come talk to me. Because we have all the strategies, right? So one of the first thing I think is setting up the expectations, right? Who you are, what you're doing to do, what you're going to do. But most of the strategies would be personalized, customized, right? So it depends on what your demographics are and who your other demographics are coming across, right? So it's very hard for me to give a general answer, but I think the important part is that first orientation meeting or just putting yourself out there and saying like, hey, I'm here to help. Right? And then meet with them because you want to understand the expectations of the mentees. You know, you are trying to help them, but they are busy too, right? So oftentimes a problem could be that you are trying to help them go a certain way, but the mentee might have other priorities. So it's important to do the goal setting. So one of the things I have seen new faculty member do, and this is very well liked in National Science Foundation, so early career people, just setting up office hours that I'm open for mentoring, right? Put it on your website, put it on your calendar, let people can schedule office hours just to talk to you. And that makes the first, you know, take the first barrier down.
Thank you. I have time for a few more. This one's about time zone and how it is not solvable. Are there specific ways to reduce the burden by this that like you've seen to be effective? The burden, the challenge,
I have not seen it in open source, but while I was on sabbatical in Google, what Google does is it has the basic code review, but then there is also readability review, which is mostly style review. So they have an automated reviewer finder, and what they would try to do is find people close to the time zones, right? So possibility is what can be done, like if there is a technical solution or technical code reviewer finder, whatever you call that, then maybe time zones could be put in there. Sometimes it's just 24-hour turnover, right? So it's hard, but then try to do async communication. Another thing, if you are someone in the position of power, it won't help you and your task problems, but you want to say that just because you gave a feedback, you don't expect someone to answer in the middle of their night, right? You have to be cognizant about who the mentee or whoever the other person is, what time zone and what life situation they are. So I have seen this happen. Quite a few people now write their emails that say, I respond at all times of the hours. I don't expect you to respond immediately. You get a request or feedback that you will be just working on it because you understand. So that is to help the other person feel better, but it does take time if there is.
Yeah. Do you? You shared a lot of very interesting resources here, and I like reading review papers and as much as the next person. But anyway, is there like a guide? Have you published something that is not more actionable, but like more concise that projects could, since people don't read documentation as we talked about before?
You don't read my journal paper that is 30 pages long?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes. Yes, we are planning on doing that, but our currency is paper, so it has gotten to a lower thing. But yes, Outreachy was also very interested. So one of the things we thought about publishing it, but then the question was people started asking us like, but which of this is more effective? Which one should I do? And that's where the survey we are trying to do is like kind of list them in order of effectiveness. Because right now the strategies are just people, mentor just saying, oh, we should do this, oh, this has helped, but we don't have any kind of impact understanding if it's actually true or not. So as an academic, we are very hesitant to put something out and say, this is it. So we wanted some validation. So we are hoping to finish this study, this is summer, by fall. So by end of fall, we want to put it up as a more table or something much more consumable by non-academics. So we're interested, but we need more survey participants. So if you want that, give me survey responses.
Sounds good.
So we'll give you that. Just give us some data first.
Great.
All right.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the
Thank you.
question. Thank you, Anita. That was a great
Yes.
talk.
My name. Just email me firstname.lastname at my school at oregonstate.edu. I'm looking for collaboration and any kind of help I can give you, I'll be happy to. Thank you.